Hey, David, how are you?
Hey Pierre, I'm good.
It's good to see you. I want to thank you for taking time to do this with me. I appreciate it. The first thing I want to tell people is a little bit about how I met David. So I ended up spending 14 months in Vietnam. I flew in on an internet visa for 90 days. I was going to have a great time. And then, of course, COVID showed up. So at that point, I was going to be in Vietnam a while. And I was kind of stuck and kind of wanted to stay. And eventually my visa was going to run out, and there was a lot of confusion, of course, surrounding COVID, and I didn't know the language, so sometimes it was hard to get information. And I ended up talking to a number of agents. And let me just explain, in Vietnam, there's an immigration agency like most countries, but generally in Vietnam, you're going to interact with an agent, not directly with the government office. Now, why is that? Well, it's a good program because the government is actually helping create and share business with the private sector, right? So people can have agency businesses. It's also helpful to you as a visitor because you have someone like David, hopefully, who's knowledgeable and speaks excellent English, and you can get your questions answered, which we all know in every country you live in, when you go to a government office, you may or may not get help. So I went through a few agents. Some of which were downright dishonest because I did the old trick of, ask a question that you know the answer to. And then when they don't give you the answer, they're not telling the truth. I went to some that were just okay. But overall, I was left with confusion and uncertainty. One of the things that's really helpful when you travel out like I do is to join Facebook expat pages in countries or cities you're visiting. So I joined one called Vietnam Visa, and it was populated by people with questions and visa agents from Vietnam. And so I was trying to figure out my situation, scrolling through, what do I do? And I came across this guy, David Tran, who seemed to have really sensible answers. And then I noticed several people piped up and was like, David's great. David's the best. And I thought, oh, yeah, sure. But I'll give him a call and try. So I called him. We spoke right away. He's based in Da Nang, which is in central Vietnam, third or fourth largest city. I was in Dalat to the south, a mountain city. But David was coming to Dalat because it's a vacation area, whether you're a foreigner or whether you're a native Vietnamese. So we arranged to have dinner together. And I invited a couple of other Americans I knew that also had their own visa problems. And I said, hey, I found this guy. I think he's really sharp. I'm having dinner with him. You should come and learn. And of course, being my friends, they were like, yeah, sure, Pierre. You think you know everything. You think this guy's great, whatever. But yeah, we're going to a nice place, German house in Dalat. We'll come along. So we went along and we met David, and he lived up to all expectations. And my friends who were skeptics to begin with were like, oh, man, you're right. That guy's really knows his stuff. Tell me a little bit about your agency, your background, and what people should know about you if they're looking to get into Vietnam now that it's opened as of March 15th.
So my name is David Tran. I work in visa industry for 5 years and mostly dealing with visa and law firm accountant for foreigners in Vietnam. So 2 days ago, Vietnam decided to open the border and resume all the visa policy from pre-COVID, which means you can apply for tourist visa at the moment. And it's actually very great because after 2 years, Vietnam open again and welcome foreigners again. The one who stuck in Vietnam before now can exit and enter again with a valid visa, which means very great. A lot of people in Vietnam already overstay for 2-3 months because the immigration department stopped their visa extension of them. So right now, this is really a good news at the moment.
So let me just explain to people that may be new to this sort of thing and are learning about visas. An overstay, that's a really important word with visas, because that means for whatever reason you have going on or the government has going on or your situation, that means your visa's expired, you're still in the country. Doesn't matter what country you're in, that's going to be trouble. That's going to be costly. Presently, there is no quarantine requirement on arrival in Vietnam. Is that correct?
Yeah, That's it, correct.
Right. So that's a huge thing to know. There is no self-quarantine. There's no mandated government quarantine at a government facility. All of that is passed. Tourist visas now. I'm somewhere in the world, some country that's on the approved list for Vietnam, and I want to go as a tourist for 30 or 90 days. What should I do now? What do I need to do to get that visa?
So right now, there's 13 countries had visa exemption for 15 days, no matter what purpose you want to enter Vietnam. I will list these countries in my fan page at Vietnam, David Tran Visa Agency. And the second thing is like e-visa. E-visa is the tourist visa, which the government provide for you 30 days to enter Vietnam. And after that 30 days, you cannot extend it. You have to exit Vietnam. So you either can wait for a little bit more, so the travel company can invite you in with 3-month tourist visa, or right now you can apply for the e-visa for 30-day tourist visa to come to Vietnam.
Okay, so you mentioned those countries, and we'll put them in the description of this video. And so right now, if I want a tourist visa, I can come. I can only stay 30 days as the situation exists today, March 17th. Things can change. Then you'll have to exit the country. Presumably, if you wanted to exit to a neighboring country like Cambodia or Thailand and return, you could do that. Let's talk about e-visa for a moment. I'll explain how I understand an e-visa, and David, you can add to that or correct me as may need be. In my previous trips to Vietnam, I would search on the web for Vietnam government approved visa agencies, and it was an e-visa because you did it all through the internet. You sent them a picture, you filled out your forms, you submitted a fee through your credit card, and a few days later, you got a copy of a letter that had your name on it, and that allowed you to enter the country. Pay your fee, and there's usually a fee when you arrive. So let me say something about that. Show up with US dollars or euros when you're going to pay your fee. It's hard to get Vietnamese dong when you're not in Vietnam, and they like dollars and euros. And if you don't have the proper change when you show up, it's a bit of a mess. I did it once, and they were mad, and I had to get marched over to the ATM and get money. And so whatever the fee is currently, have it in hard currency, exact change. It'll go a lot smoother. So you got an e-visa because it was through the internet, and that exists now. And that, David, you said there's private companies still doing that now. Your company is going to be doing that. And then there's also a direct government website up and running now, right?
Yes, that is correct. But now, mostly I highly suggesting with young people or people who know technology, they can very easily come into the government website and fill out the information and then get the e-visa like 3 days later. And it's not worth it to wasting money to give for agent so they can make the thing that you were able to make it by yourself. And that's going to be a problem with older people who don't know how to interact with internet, and they're willing to pay for somebody to fill up the form and get a paperwork for them. And when they get the visa letter and when they arrive at the airport, please prepare $25. That's going to be the cost for visa on arrival for them.
Right. So I've looked at the government website. You can tell it's a government website because it's not super pretty. It's not the simplest thing, but you can get right through it. And also, when I talked about those expat groups, so I've seen already now some people that got in there the instant the government site opened. Some people have already got visas issued. You pay a little bit more to go to an agent website. David mentioned one, your ability with technology. Two, if you feel nervous about the whole process and you want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody, you're going to be able to do that with a private agent, calling Vietnamese Department of Immigration, unless you speak Vietnamese. And even if you do, it's probably not going to go. It's not going to be a great experience. So those are the two. So now, so when I apply for my e-visa, there's going to be some requirements, right? I got to 6 months on the passport. A good rule of thumb when you're traveling, do not try to get into another country without a minimum of 6 months validity on your passport. Do I need health insurance?
At the moment, you won't need health insurance to come in.
Okay.
And all the thing you need will be just the passport, the A visa that you print out, and the COVID test that's still valid within 72 hours when you land in Vietnam.
Okay, so that's an important to note. It has to be 72 hours within landing. Some countries it's 72 hours prior to departure or 48 hours. So that means you need to be attentive. Now, do you need to show proof of vaccine?
At the official information from the health department a few days ago, right now you don't have to show the vaccine certificate when you enter.
Okay, and again, that's something you got to understand that in Vietnam, from my experiences there, and David, again, correct me if I'm wrong, you had different factions and different groups in the government. Some saying we got to open tourism now, we need the economic revenue. And you have other factions saying, no way, there's COVID. Those foreigners are going to bring us COVID. So there was fighting over it. So sometimes things are supposed to be announced, it's delayed. The other thing you have to be aware of is, this would be a typical one to me, is like, today you don't have to have a vaccine card. That's one to double check. Don't be surprised that if they've just decided to reopen, they haven't figured out how they're going to format the vaccine card requirement. Don't be surprised if in a week or say in a month, when some tourists show up unvaccinated and get COVID, that doesn't change. I would just be aware of that one.
Yes, at the moment we are speaking, the health department don't require the vaccine paper when you enter, but you better prepare it because maybe they're gonna check it later.
Right. It would be a shame to buy your plane ticket and gee, where's your vaccine card when you try to board? Oh, you didn't know? Now Vietnam wants one of those. You're not boarding. Not good. All right, David. So we've talked a bit about the most common visa, which is a tourist visa. Let's talk next about business visas, because as I knew it, you had a typical collection of visas in Vietnam: tourist, business, investor, spousal.
That's correct.
Of some kind. Those are the main common ones. So let's talk next about the business visas. Are they issuing business visas or not yet?
They issuing business visa at the moment very easy. So before in the COVID time, Vietnam is very strict on business visa, who can enter and who cannot. You have to go through a long process with like 4 to 5 weeks to just get the letter from committee of people, and then you have to apply it to get the visa letter from the immigration department. But right now, if you have a company which is operating already like 3-4 years, the new company cannot sponsor. Please remember that the new company just formed like last year cannot sponsor you. So at the moment we are speaking, they provide 3-month business visa very easily if you have the company.
And do you know what the cost of that is?
Normally right now it's going to be $85 to $90 for 3-month business visa with multiple entries.
Okay, and that's one you would suggest you have to do that with an agent. That's not an e-visa, go on the website thing.
Yes, that had to be go offline. There were going to be like people go into the immigration department, apply the paperwork that your company will need to sign and stamp.
Right. So about 2 years ago, when I arrived in Vietnam, lots of people were getting business visas that didn't really have any business backing. And then that changed. They cracked down on that. You actually couldn't just get a business visa because it was cheaper and longer and say, oh yeah, I'm in business. What business? Monkey business. And then I know about the People's Committee thing. That was a big deal, right? Because that's a local bureaucracy. And here's somebody that wants their visa approved. It's like the last thing they care about on their list. That was a lot of trouble. So that's a big development that now no People's Committee, right?
Yes, that's it, correct.
A lot easier. And let's just to be clear, like the 30-day tourist visa, that's single entry only, right?
Yes.
So you enter on day 1. By day 30, you have to exit. If you exit earlier, your visa's done. You're not coming back because you have days left. When David talked about a business visa for a longer time period, that means throughout the duration of that visa, halfway you need to fly home or fly to another country to do some business. You still have days on your visa, right back in, no problem. So then the next one would be probably investor visas. I know it's complicated. And one thing I can tell you that really impressed me, because I was looking into this, is that David has contacts for all the stuff that's not directly related to the visa to set up a business, right? If you're going to invest, he's very knowledgeable in that. And one of the key things that impressed me about him is I talked to a lot of agents. They were like, well, these are all the requirements, but don't worry, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll play this game, we'll have some fake paperwork, you'll get your visa. Yeah, guess what? And there'll be big trouble when that ends. And David was like, well, we don't do that. We actually do it correctly so that your paperwork is rock solid and you really are an investor, really are tied into a business. And he still knew the best ways to do it. So maybe just briefly give us a little bit about investor visas.
So investor visa right now have two main categories that you will need to know. The people who invest under 3 billion Vietnam dong and
That's
people
billion,
who invest
right?
over 3 billion Vietnam dong. So people who invest under that amount will get the DT4 visa, which means maximum 1 year multiple entries investor visa. And people who invest above that amount gonna get a TRC, which means temporary resident card, and it's a separate card from your passport. You can use that to exit and enter Vietnam without any problem, and it usually had to valid in 2 or 3 years.
Okay, so and 3 billion dong is about $150,000. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Right. So those are you're either above or below that, and those are your options. So there's a lot of complexity to that. Also, these magic letters, TRC, that's something a lot of people seek in Vietnam. If you're not looking just to visit and you're thinking you want to stay longer, TRC is important. So if this video is a success and people like it and they want it, maybe David and I could spend a little more time on TRCs and things like teaching employment in Vietnam, because that's another big category with its own challenges, both in the teaching business, changing laws in Vietnam in that regard, and getting a visa. So then the last one would be spousal visa, right? And I think there's probably two. There's one where like you're engaged, or there's one if you're already married. Is that right? Or are they the same visa?
Mostly they are for people who married with Vietnamese citizen.
Okay, so you're a foreigner married to a Vietnamese man or a woman, and this was again something that struck me that was a little different in Vietnam. In a lot of the countries I'm familiar with, once you're married to that national of that country, things are pretty easy. You get a 5-year visa or you get longer extensions, and there's not much requirements other than proving you're married. In Vietnam, it seemed to me that there was a little more complexity than that, and that you don't just get married, come into the country, and just stay forever, no problem.
So the thing with the marriage spousal visa in Vietnam is like to apply for that 3-year temporary resident card, depending on your spouse, it's gonna be very difficult. You had to notarize your marriage certificate, notarize your wife's ID, notarize her family book, notarize your residency proof by police, and that's going to be a very long process. Some people who go directly to the immigration department in Da Nang, all they got is like 1 year, and that's all. The immigration office in Da Nang doesn't provide longer option for them. But if you work through agent, you will always get 3-year TRC.
Right. So as you can see, you might be married to a national of the country, but you only get a 1-year stay. And there's a lot of complexities to go into it. So again, if that's something that's popular, we could try and talk a little bit more about that. Well, David, I really want to thank you for taking the time with me to talk about this. I appreciate our friendship and our relationship. Happy I got to know you in Vietnam, that we could do this together. And you've seen David, you've heard him speak. He really understands this business. He doesn't make commitments he can't keep. He'll be honest with you if your situation is not one he can help you with. He's not one of those agents going to take the money, take the passport, and then 6 weeks later, oh, sorry, your visa's expired. Too bad for you. I couldn't do it. And these things happen with agents in Vietnam. And he really can address more challenging situations and figure out a structure that will work for you. So I strongly endorse him. And in the description of this, we're going to have his WhatsApp contact, website, et cetera, et cetera. So you can go straight to David and get solid information. And if you watch this video and it's much past March 17th, hey, shoot him an email, send him a message on WhatsApp or a call. Remember the time change in Vietnam, huh? Because like when it's 8 o'clock here, it's 10 o'clock in the morning there. And touch base with him, make sure that there's no new changes. It'd be a lot easier and a lot better experience than trying to search through a million postings on the web that may or may not be accurate. So David, I just really want to thank you for taking the time, and I hope you have a great rest of the day and sell lots of visas.
Thank you, Pierre, for having me today. I really appreciate the effort that you put in the video and help me to spreading the good news and the new policy for foreigners around the world.
Well, we're really happy. Vietnam's such a beautiful country, and it's awesome that Vietnam's welcoming visitors back. So thanks for taking the time. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Hey, well, I hope you liked this video and that you found it informative. So do me a favor, hey, like, share, and subscribe, and then there'll be more. Thanks all. Bye.